Alright everyone, we start off today talking about Davidhogg actually, which is interesting because his 15 minutes of fame is from several years ago. I remember when people were getting in trouble for criticizing him back before he was 18. Oh no, how dare you contravene what this person with opinions says. They're not of age yet, and so there's something wrong with arguing the point with them. Greta Thunberg also had this advantage, and much like Greta Thunberg, Davidhogg, the two of them have dropped off the face of the earth and are no longer relevant because they're not being promoted as much. Hogg, I guess, occasionally he still gets like an appearance on some news story because he's a craptivist and has his little group of people that he uses to promote himself, but he's become one of the most unrepentant Leftoid grifters. Link in the description. Archived, of course. I'll read this out and then give my thoughts. I'll read it verbatim here. This is in response, by the way, to Marjorie Taylor Greene here on her official account. You know, the other one was banned off Twitter, I think. Please explain to me how my classmates' rights, including the Second Amendment, this is confusing, were not infringed upon when they were killed in their classrooms. If you are killed because of our unregulated militia, you lose all of your rights, including the Second Amendment. Death is the ultimate infringement. Now first, yes, people have the right to be alive. Life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, and all that kind of thing. That being said, of course, guns are not normally used to kill people at all, outside of the context of war. I'll get into debunking his claim. He elaborates further, and pretty much everything that he says is flat out wrong from a legal perspective and from just a regular common sense perspective. First, though, before I get a little bit more into that, keep in mind if you're watching this video on YouTube, down below there will be a pinned comment with links to other video hosting sites that I use. Keep in mind I make exclusive content every day on those platforms that does not go on YouTube. I think I'll only do one exclusive today. Again, my apologies. I've actually got the illustrations in for the next book, so I want to rush that out, and we're expecting a whole bunch of packages today, so I'm not going to be able to maybe dedicate quite as much time to the video thing. Oh my goodness, these days with all the censorship on YouTube and stuff, it's like, maybe I should just make new tech exclusives. Anyway, Hogg claims, for instance, that this has to do with unregulated militia activity. If you know anything about 18th century English, Hogg, as an unintelligent individual, probably can barely read and write, probably doesn't. In the 1700s, the term regulated had nothing to do with government regulation. Indeed, you're trying to retroactively apply the new use of the term to the old term. Well, really, the use of regulated in the context of government regulating things is to make it more well able to function. You'll notice that the term regulation technically in the modern context often does not apply because government regulations typically don't actually regulate something in the sense of making it more able to function better. In the sense of the militia, which is the entire voting age population, if you are part of the population, you're not a lunatic, and you're not under 18, you're part of the militia. Or old to the point where, you can't take part in combat potentially. The whole goal, because that term was being used in the context of a constitution coming before there was a standing military force at all and it was all volunteer, the concept in the American sense was to depart from the European style heavily controlled, not regulated, but controlled military system in which you had what were called regulars. Career soldiers, people who had been drafted, volunteer, whatever, at sea or on land, and they were soldiers. The idea was the militia was totally different, and because there was no military for that term usage to apply to. The militia is regulated when it is well supplied and able to function. Insofar as that's the case, you want more guns of more kinds. You want more training and equipment and so forth. I personally believe that paramilitary training should be given in schools. Like the ROTC side of things should be mandatory in U.S. schools. It makes sense to make the population healthier too. Do some marching and shit like that. Learn basic survival skills. Now, if you don't like guns and shit like that, well, there's always training for medics and things like that. Maybe you like radio operations or something. It'd be very important. Your school, it has a radio show or something. Maybe it has a whole broadcast of the community, and you get that one nerdy kid who really likes ham radios and signs up and says, well, I'll do this for my training. Give him a couple of years, And if they want a couple more years, all through middle and high school, let them take 6, graduate from school and go right in and be a lieutenant because they know more than all the grunts do. We probably wouldn't make him a lieutenant in that case. Sergeant or something. There's jokes about lieutenants from the Vietnam War era that are quite funny. But look at what he's actually saying here. He's effectively saying that you have to listen to me because my classmates died. Well, you weren't even there, David. You were biking at the time. Your classmates got killed. That's sad. Nobody should be shot and killed, especially kids. But that doesn't make your opinion more relevant. You weren't even part of the overall experience. Initially, it was claimed that he was there basically hunkered in the bunker, and we found out that wasn't even the case. How, therefore, does the fact that there was a shooting there at the school directly impact you beyond other people happen to have died? That impacts them a lot more than you. Now, saying they've been deprived of their rights by being killed. Yeah, absolutely. That's the case. They can't speak freely anymore because, they're skeletons at the moment or piles of ashes in urns. That's true. They've been stripped of their rights by a criminal. Not someone acting in a militia sense. The person had not mustered because there was some threat to fight off of for an invasion, criminals or something. They weren't arming up in order to defend their home against a bear or a burglar or against enemy soldiers. They just went crazy and decided to massacre a bunch of people. The fact is, though, that the vast majority of gun owners don't do that. Guns are most often used for peaceful purposes. I love it when they say, well, guns aren't used in self-defense as much as you might think, which is itself a lie, but we'll get past that. Yes, they're also used for plinking, sports shooting, hunting, competitive shooting, and a million other things. In many cases, the gun is rarely, if ever, fired outside of a range where the person's doing topical training, simply because they have a gun to defend their home. That's a large number of gun owners. The majority of it is, hey, I own a gun to defend my home because there's a possibility of a burglar, a rapist tries to break in. Rural America, hunting, or just garden defense. The little .22 revolver that I've got back in Rutland is not a self-defense weapon. It's not practical, especially because it's slightly heavy in hand. It's got a longer barrel and stuff. It's perfect for you've got a trap line and the animal didn't die overnight. My grandfather used to take it trapping, gave it to me. I wouldn't deploy that against a burglar. 22 round. I'm really accurate with it, but I'm afraid that it doesn't have enough stopping power. No, I think that I would go with the Glock 17 or something like that. It's a little bit more practical. You also are probably not going to try to massacre people with most of the weapons that are owned. I like it when they do the uber scary AR-15, full semi-auto, 1,000 clips a second. That's bullshit too. An aesthetically similar weapon to an actual military weapon that doesn't even have the select fire options, not even an assault rifle. Can't have an assault rifle in the United States generally. You can have a machine gun with a tax stamp if you can find one to buy and you have $10,000, $15,000 lying around. You can buy a Tommy gun that is full auto. Now try to actually use it without the feds getting called by your neighbors and ending up like Waco. They're collectible, effectively. Yes, you can use this in combat. It wouldn't be a practical idea, though. But Davidhogg knows nothing about guns. Apparently nothing about civics. But I mean, when you're an ideologue who is clearly grifting off of the memory of your dead friends, when you're using that to push your own relevance like a complete scumbag, of course he's going to say dumb things. If anything, even when he gets negative attention, technically it's a positive thing for him because at least someone's discussing him. I hate to say this, the one disadvantage of the internet, I love the internet, make my living on it, the one big disadvantage is that it incentivizes people to do that. It incentivizes people to say and do scummy things for attention. We see a million examples of this. Now, it's not like that didn't happen with like MTV and shit like that before the internet era and certainly before the social media era. I'm not arguing that the internet created the phenomenon. But boy, oh boy, does it make it more common. It reveals to us, I don't think it makes people narcissistic, it reveals to us how many people in society given a platform are narcissistic. The grifters. The people that are complete scum, and Davidhogg is definitely one of those people. It's beyond the pale to bring up your dead friends over and over again and use that in political debates and say, well, because other people had this terrible experience, and I was adjacent to it, and I happened to be on TV, put before the nation for basically because I looked the part and had some coherence in the ability of public speaking, now you still have to listen to me years and years later, even though what I'm saying is legally incomprehensible, morally incomprehensible, based on, again, that sleazy, scummy grift. No, people shouldn't be listening to Davidhogg. If they're going to listen to him at all, it should be for the purposes of satirizing him. He deserves to be criticized. That's about all. Peace out.